So I got some Baldur's Gate 3 news for you today, mainly concerning Xbox. So if that doesn't interest you, I'll catch you on the next one. Also note that I'm getting really close to 200k subscribers, and I told you all I would upgrade my webcam when I hit 200k. So hopefully that upgrade will be coming soon, and hopefully it looks better, because it does require a lot of tweaking with the green screen and everything, but we'll deal with that when the time comes. So over on Twitter, the creative director, CEO, and founder of Larian Studios himself, Sven Vinke, I see a lot of people saying Sven Vinke, which is understandable, tweeted out today, super happy to confirm that after meeting Xbox P3, which is Phil Spencer, the CEO of Xbox, yesterday, we found a solution that allows us to bring Baldur's Gate 3 to Xbox players this year still, something we've been working towards for quite some time. So the last announcement from Larian was that Xbox was going to get a release in 2024 due to problems that they were having with the Xbox Series S, but Sven has now met with Phil Spencer from Xbox, and it looks like it's going to be happening this year, 2023, which is great news. We want, as many consoles to release at similar times as possible in this industry. Then below this, Sven says all improvements will be there with split screen co-op on Series X. Series S will not feature split screen co-op, but will also include cross-save progression between Steam and Xbox Series. So somehow Larian was able to convince or work with Xbox to allow them to release Baldur's Gate 3 on the Series S without split screen. And from what I understand, the problem before was that you had to release a game basically like almost identical to each other on the Series X and also the S, and since Larian couldn't get split screen to work on the S, which is the less powerful system, they weren't able to release it at all on Xbox. So if you're a Series S player and you really were hoping for split screen, it doesn't seem to be happening, but maybe it will happen at some point in the future. Not entirely sure, but do note that there still is that cross-save progression where you could be playing on PC right now and then pick up your game on Xbox Series X or S when it comes out, or vice versa. Now do note, because I see a lot of people getting the terms confused, there is still no cross-play between console and PC. So if you have friends on PC, you can't play with them if you're playing on your console. The saves will carry over from PC to console, but there is no cross-play. At least we haven't heard anything about it yet. Now, IGN also recently released an article going much more in depth into this discussion, and they talked to Phil Spencer himself. And there's some interesting tidbits of information and also some quotes from Phil that I wanted to talk about in today's video. The first thing I want to quickly get out of the way is there is no exclusivity deal between Larian and Sony. Now, the moment that Baldur's Gate 3 was announced to launch on PlayStation and not Xbox, of course, there were some upset fans out there, and then misinformation starts spreading like wildfire, and all of a sudden you have news articles going around that Larian Studios has an exclusivity deal with Sony, which is simply just not true. So just know that. Now, the issue is a little bit more complex, and as IGN writes right here, Larian is struggling to get Baldur's Gate 3's two-player split-screen co-op running well enough on the less powerful but cheaper Xbox Series S. And a Microsoft policy that enforces gameplay feature parity across Xbox Series X and S means Larian cannot release Baldur's Gate 3 on any Xbox Series console until it has optimized split-screen co-op on the S to the point it hits the quality bar it needs to satisfy players. So that's the reason why it didn't launch on Xbox, because Larian was having problems with split screen on the Series S. And they weren't allowed to just release it on the X, and at the time they weren't allowed to release it without split screen on the S, which is changing here. It seems like Microsoft might be letting up a little bit on their rules and regulations for games that release on their platforms. Now also note, Larian's not the only company to have problems with this. 343, the company behind the most recent Halo game, Halo Infinite, did not release Halo with split screen, and Halo is like the grandfather game of split screen games, and also Turn 10's Forza Motorsport won't have split screen at launch either. So what's the problem here? Is it developers that just don't have the time and money or even the desire to make split screen work on the X and the S? Or is this an Xbox problem to where working with the S is just too much of a pain in the butt and the parity requirements are just too much, because they could release Halo Infinite split screen on the X and not do it on the S, but Xbox is requiring that both consoles have it, which can be a good thing because you're sticking up for the people that bought the cheaper system. But at the same time, if it ends up meaning that companies are going to scrap the feature completely or delay games, is it really worth it for Xbox fans? Well, Phil has some words for us. The decision to do split screen or not is a creative decision, a dev decision, Spencer said. So if we think about Forza, it has nothing to do with any kind of hardware thing on S and X, just where they wanted to focus their time. Now, I can't speak for Forza, but for other companies like Larian, I mean, I can't really speak for them, but from what I've seen, it does kind of seem like a hardware thing, because the Series S and the X are so different to work with, and that causes games to delay or companies to scrap features because of the difficulties of the difference between S and X. It's not appealing to work with the S, and that's affecting Xbox fans, and that's Xbox's problem, not really the developer's problem. Xbox needs to make it appealing to work with both systems and make it easier. Now, Phil also says, in terms of the two platforms, I want games to launch on both platforms, X and S. And I think that's great, because he really does want, you know, the cheaper system to get just as much love as the more expensive system, which means more people are going to be able to play. But what does that come at the cost of, is the question. Does that come at the cost of games coming to Xbox, period, or really nice features being scrapped completely just because of one of the systems? There are feature differences between the platforms. We have an ability to kind of handle that and how it works. Now, kind of isn't really that reassuring, but okay. Where teams are going to choose to focus their time and effort is up to them. So that's true, but you as the console have to make teams want to focus their time and effort on both of your systems and bringing the best games that they can to both of those systems with as many features as possible. And if it's not appealing to do that, companies are going to scrap features or just delay games or not work with Xbox at all. So yes, it's up to them, but it's up to you, Xbox, to make both of your systems appealing for companies to work with. With all that said, Xbox has acknowledged this to a certain degree, and clearly they're lifting the parity requirements a little bit for Larian with Baldur's Gate 3, as BG3 is coming to the Series X with split screen, but no split screen for the Series S. So it's kind of cool for Larian to be that company that's kind of changing Phil's view on this, or Xbox's view on the parity requirements with these two pretty different systems, Series S and X, which do give developers problems. And Phil even said, we're going to learn from this experience as well, because we don't love that. So that's nice to see. Now, at the bottom of the article, Phil talks about Baldur's Gate 3 specifically, and he says, it's a great game. They're an important partner. I'm meeting with them here at Gamescom. It's a game I want to see on the platform, and we have the resources that helped in terms of making sure it's going to. Now, this just makes me think. Now, don't run with this narrative. I'm just kind of speaking my mind here. Why is Xbox caring so much about Baldur's Gate 3 now, after the game is already launched? And they're just meeting now. Why wasn't it before? And that makes you wonder, is it because maybe Xbox didn't really care that much about Baldur's Gate 3 until it became headlines and became one of the biggest games of the year? I have no idea. But regardless, this seems to be a step in the right direction, which is the most important thing here. And yeah, Xbox fans, get excited. You're probably going to be playing Baldur's Gate 3 later this year, and that goes for Series X and S players. If you're an S player that was really looking forward to split screen, I know that kind of sucks, but I think probably it's just too much of a pain in the butt of a system to work with. And even though Phil kind of says that it's the developer's choice to not work with it, the developer's making that choice for a reason, because it's a pain in the butt and it's not worth the time and the money to make it work. So I think that's more so an Xbox problem, but whatever. This is good news. Very excited. Still waiting on some more official news for Mac players. I'm assuming that it'll probably be ready in early September timeframe. That's what I would guess right now, maybe around that PlayStation launch. If you really want to play right now, though, don't forget that you could play through GeForce Now on your MacBook. There's also a workaround. I saw an article on this where Mac players were playing BG3, not through GeForce Now, just on their Mac. Just do a Google search and you'll probably be able to find it. Thank you all so much for watching, and I'll catch you on the next one.